What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the show. As always, thank you for tuning in. I have to apologize in advance. I have like this major sinus congestion. I haven't been feeling real hot the last few days, so I apologize if I sound like Squidward here. I'm going to do my best. I actually feel good enough to put out some content, and since there is no shortage of insanity happening out there and important stuff for people to know, I promised myself no matter what, I would put out some content. And first thing I want to talk about is, you guys remember Joe Biden had a document scandal too. The thing is they really want the Joe Biden classified document scandal to just disappear, and that's why we haven't really heard anything about it. But I was scrolling through the news today. I was actually thinking about that today. I'm like, wait a minute. Where is Joe Biden's document scandal at? Like, this guy got caught with classified documents that it seemed to be spread out all over Delaware. So I found an article by The Hill, hat tip to Jonathan Turley. You probably heard that name quite a bit here lately. Jonathan Turley he used to be a pretty hardcore liberal. And when I say liberal, I don't mean leftist. There is a difference between leftists and liberals. Jonathan Turley, I would probably say, took his white pill within the last couple years from COVID. And he's been a pretty staunch defender of Donald Trump lately for the simple fact that he is standing up for the Constitution and the rule of law. And he sees these frivolous indictments, these frivolous lawsuits. He sees the damage that's being caused by the weaponization by the Democrats of our justice system. And so it seems like he's sticking up for Donald Trump. But honestly, I don't even know if he likes Donald Trump. I just see him sticking up for the rule of law and the Constitution, much like Glenn Greenwald. Both of these people were pretty staunch liberals in the past that have seemingly come out and find themselves more in the middle. You can call it white-pilled. They're not on either side, but they are for the truth. And so Jonathan Turley has been a pretty staunch defender of Donald Trump here lately, and he came out with this article on the 14th of October, which is actually my wife's birthday, and it's titled, "New Evidence May Destroy Biden's Defense in His Classified Documents Case." Yes. So I think this got past people is because it was on the 14th of October. That is a week after the barbaric, savage attacks on Israel, which completely saturated the media for at least a month. It was nonstop Israel coverage 24/7. And was it on purpose? I don't know. But I guarantee you these media outlets knew about what I'm getting ready to tell you in just a minute. And so the article goes on. It says, this month, the sudden appearance of special counsel Robert Hur caused as much of a stir as Bigfoot suddenly appearing on Pennsylvania Avenue. Yes, Robert Hur is the special counsel that was assigned to Joe Biden's document case by Merrick Garland. Robert Hur is supposedly this Republican, and you can't forget because the leftist media constantly reminds us that Robert Hur is a Republican. I don't know why they would have to constantly mention that if the justice system hasn't been politicized. However, I digress. Robert Hur is the special counsel assigned by Merrick Garland to investigate Joe Biden. And as soon as he was assigned to the case as special counsel, he just vanished out of thin air. And nobody has really talked about it since. Until now. So unlike the counterpart, special counsel Jack Smith, who has been aggressively prosecuting former President Donald Trump, Hur has virtually disappeared since his appointment to investigate President Joe Biden. Hur surfaced to interview Biden over his possession of classified documents, including some that go back to his time as U.S. Senator. I have referred to Hur as a quote-unquote neutron prosecutor, a special counsel with no possible charge under Justice Department policy barring the indictment of a sitting president. So essentially, he is a lame duck. He is a special counsel that really can't do anything but just investigate, because you can't indict a sitting president. Well, that we know of. It's never been tried before. And I think Joe Biden should certainly be the first one. So if that was not enough of a problem, Hur may have growing evidence that accounts offered by the White House over the discovery of the documents are false. The new evidence could prove transformative, not only for the criminal, but the impeachment investigation of the president. This is a big deal, and I think we are going to see this come out during the Joe Biden impeachment inquiry and possibly the impeachment trial. We don't know yet, but as of right now, I guarantee you they're looking into this investigation because we haven't heard anything about it. And just based off of what I've read, Joe Biden, it's not looking very good for Joe Biden. Once again, Joe Biden, the White House, the press secretary have lied to the American people. And there has been a 100% 24/7 cover-up operation by the government institutions to protect Joe Biden and the Biden family. Why? I think we all know why at this point. It's because the Bidens are extremely corrupt, and without the government institutions running cover for them 24/7, Joe Biden would have been impeached a long time ago, and he never would have won the presidency. This is the system protecting Joe Biden. Yes, that means Democrats and Republicans. The entire damn system is in this cover-up operation for Joe Biden so that Donald Trump doesn't win the election. However, this week, the House Oversight Committee released a new timeline on the discovery of classified documents in various locations associated with Biden. From the outset, many of us flagged problems with the account that had been given by Biden, who insisted that he had no knowledge or involvement in the removal or use of the documents. And I have some audio of Joe Biden giving that briefing to the public right here. Check this out.
People know I take classified documents and classified information seriously. I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents they were, and we're cooperating fully with the review, and which I hope will be finished soon, and there'll be more detail at that time.
All right, let me go back. Joe Biden, who insisted he had no knowledge or involvement in the removal or use of the classified documents. The most glaring problem is that after they were removed at the end of his term as vice president, the documents were repeatedly moved and divided up. Some were found in the Penn Biden Center office used by Biden in Washington, D.C. Others were found in his garage and reportedly in his library. This is that famous picture of Joe Biden in his midlife crisis Corvette, and in the background you can see boxes of papers, which were the documents. All right, that is that famous picture you see all over the internet of Joe Biden in his stupid Corvette with the classified documents in the background. Like, okay, yeah, like that's a good idea. Like that doesn't throw up any red flags for anybody why this guy has classified documents just sitting in his garage. So we all knew this from day one, that there was going to be this cover-up operation because Joe Biden's case is not good. Why? Because Joe Biden has no business having classified documents. There is a big difference. And listen, the media has been harping on this from day one, specifically Joe and Mika, saying that there are comparisons being drawn up between the Donald Trump classified document case and the Joe Biden classified document case. And there are major differences. And the difference is Joe Biden's situation is much, much worse. Because Joe Biden was not supposed to have classified documents. Why? Because Joe Biden was never president. However, there was one of the arguments on the left is that Barack Obama signed an Executive Order 13526, the classified national security information, and the left uses this as an excuse as to why Joe Biden had the authority to declassify documents. But there's a catch, and we're going to go through that in just a little bit. But I want to get back to the story because there's a lot more information. It's not adding up, folks. It's not adding up at all. All right, so back to the article. Biden made clear from the beginning that he expected the investigation to be perfunctory and brief. He publicly declared that he has no regrets over his own conduct and told the public that the documents investigation would soon peter out when it determined that there was, quote, no there, unquote. Now, however, it appears that a critical claim by the White House in the scandal may not only be false, but was knowingly false at the time it was made. The White House and the Biden's counsel have long maintained that as soon as the documents were discovered in the D.C. office, they notified the National Archives. Many asked, why did they not call the FBI? But the White House has at least maintained that, unlike Trump, they took immediate action to notify authorities. And this is where the media came into play. This is exactly the narrative the media used from day one when they came up with this mass narrative saturation to where they were going to drive the differences between the Donald Trump document scandal and the Joe Biden document scandal. And their biggest excuse for Joe Biden is that he turned them over as soon as he found out. He turned them over immediately. And so I guess that all of a sudden makes it all better, right? No. So I got some audio here of Joe and Mika saying exactly that. So here's Joe and Mika giving that defense right here. Here, check this out.
So, Mika, obviously there are comparisons being drawn by many Republicans to the Donald Trump documents at Mar-a-Lago. Obviously, vast differences there. But the Department of Justice and the FBI are looking into this matter and have been for several months now.
Right. Immediate opportunity for the Republicans to pounce. So let's look at how the situation compares to the classified documents case involving former President Donald Trump. Trump, as you may recall, is under federal investigation after an FBI search of his Florida home and resort reportedly turned up more than 160 classified documents, 60 of which were top secret. In the Biden case, fewer than a dozen documents were reportedly found, some of which were marked top secret.
Okay, so that's excuse number one. So that it's okay Joe Biden had these documents because it's the amount of documents that really matters, right, folks? Like, oh, well, Donald Trump had 160 of them, and Joe Biden, he only had less than a dozen. If that is even true, what they're saying is that there wasn't as many documents as Trump. It still does not matter. Joe Biden shouldn't have had documents anyways. Why? Because he wasn't president. There is a huge difference between the Joe Biden document scandal and the Donald Trump document scandal. And the leftist Pravda media cannot come up with any legit reason, as far as legal reason, like an actual legit excuse as to why it's okay for Joe Biden to have documents, other than, oh, it's the amount of documents. Like, that should make a big difference to people. Does it make it right? No, it doesn't. I want to go ahead and continue on with Mika, giving the American people the narrative as to why Donald Trump's situation is way worse.
In the Trump probe, the FBI carried out its search after the former president ignored a federal subpoena. In the Biden situation, the documents were not even the subject of a National Archives inquiry, but the White House still turned them over the day after they were found.
All right, excuse number two. Oh, it's okay for Joe Biden to have documents because, listen, NARA wasn't even looking for him anyways. So, I mean, come on. I mean, they weren't even looking for him. So it's okay that Joe Biden had documents because, the National Archives wasn't looking for him anyways. Big deal, right?
That means had Biden's team not contacted federal agencies themselves, the National Archives would likely still not even know any documents were missing. It is also worth noting.
So they self-reported.
Right, they self-reported.
Whereas Trump kept being contacted by the DOJ and the FBI.
And had them hidden in a storage room in that club, Mar-a-Lago.
They lied to the FBI. They lied to the DOJ. Trump did. Lied repeatedly to try to keep the documents. But you're saying, this is interesting, the Biden team found it and immediately contacted the DOJ and turned it over the next day.
Yes, it's also worth noting.
Some would say apples and oranges.
It's also...
Yeah, you're right. This is apples and oranges. And Joe Biden's situation is much, much worse. Because now we're starting to learn from this article is that they didn't turn over the documents as soon as they found them. In fact, there was a huge gap between when they started finding these documents and discovering these documents all over the place to when they actually turned them in, to when they actually notified the authorities. So once again, Joe and Mika, they are a bunch of slobbering, lying losers, lying to the American people as a profession. That's what these people do. They are narrative builders. they saturate the narrative and they manipulate the public. What does that sound like? Well, it sounds an awful like propaganda, because that's exactly what it is. CNN, MSNBC, people like Joe and Mika, Joe Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski, whatever her name is, these people are the Pravda media of our day. So back to the article here. So that's their excuse. All right, number one, Joe Biden didn't have as many documents as Donald Trump. Okay, number two, oh, well, NARA, the National Archives, wasn't even looking for him. So big deal, right? Since they weren't looking for him, big freaking deal. He had classified documents, big deal. That's number two. And number three, oh, well, as soon as they found the documents and realized that they had them, they turned him in right away. They contacted the authorities immediately. Well, not according to the evidence we're now starting to learn. So, however, it now appears that this was not true. One of the closest aides to Biden and a close friend to Hunter Biden is Annie Tomasini. She referred to Hunter as her quote-unquote brother and signed off messages with quote-unquote LY or love you. Right? This is how close this woman was to Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. So Tomasini was once a senior aide to Joe Biden and, according to the Oversight Committee, inspected the classified material on, you ready for this? March 18th, 2021. 2 months after Biden took office, nearly 20 months before they were said to be found by the Biden team. So much for the Biden team and Joe Biden contacting the authorities immediately after finding the documents, huh? These people, they do not, I'm not really surprised, but the thing is that people actually believe this stuff. This is how they operate. The Pravda media starts these narratives, they push the narrative, and by the time the truth actually comes out, people's minds are already set on that initial narrative. And second of all, these Pravda outlets like MSNBC and CNN, they never go back on their reporting. They just keep it out there. And so this is why for years, people thought that Donald Trump called soldiers losers and suckers. And for years, that Donald Trump said they were the very fine people hoax. You guys remember that? And so the problem is that people hear these narratives in the beginning, and that's what they believe from there on out. And it's almost impossible to get these people to realize the truth, even if you shower them with facts and evidence. And the media, people like Joe and Mika, they know this. And so they purposely drive these narratives to purposely and knowingly mislead the public. Why? Because they want to influence the public. They want to brainwash the public. They want to poison future jury pools, whatever it is. But this is what they've been doing this is what they've been doing for decades, really. But we've only really started noticing it for the last 8-9 years since Donald Trump came into office. But the media has always controlled the narrative, folks. We know this. The media owns the information, and everybody knows that whoever owns the information can bend it and twist it however they want. Well, the media has had a monopoly on information for decades and decades and decades, but only up until now, when you have alternative media outlets like podcasts, YouTube channels, Rumble channels, shows like this, that people are actually starting to learn the other side of the narrative. And it's absolutely destroying these people's system that they've had in place for decades. And this is why things are getting so crazy. This is why you have the censorship that we have. This is why you have government institutions like CISA calling everything that they don't agree with disinformation, misinformation, or malinformation. And this is why we're going down this dystopian nightmare, is because these people no longer have monopoly on the information. Now, listen, are there conspiracy theories out there? Of course. But that doesn't mean you get to be the arbiter of truth. No one side or no one institution or person should have control and complete monopoly over all information. Everybody should be able to hear everything and make their own determination. So, back to the article here. So the committee now alleges that the White House omitted months of communications, planning, and coordinating among multiple White House officials, Kathy Chung, Penn Biden Center employees, and President Biden's personal attorneys to retrieve the boxes containing classified materials. The timeline also omitted multiple visits from at least 5 White House employees, including Dana Remus, Anthony Burnell, Ashley Williams, Annie Tomasini, and an unknown staffer. If true, the evidence demolishes the timeline long maintained by the Biden team that could have an immediate impact on both the criminal and impeachment investigations. The timeline has been a critical distinction drawn by the White House in distinguishing this matter from the Trump indictment, in which Smith charged the former president with 37 counts, including retaining classified information, obstructing justice, and making false statements and other charges. Wow, they sound like almost the exact same type of charges that this story is alleging Joe Biden and the Biden team did. So why do I say that? Well, first of all, Joe Biden, whether you like Joe Biden or not, you voted for him, you're a supporter of him, and you think Donald Trump is the next coming Hitler, regardless of what you think and what you feel, Joe Biden still was retaining classified information, which means no matter what, Joe Biden still had classified documents he was not supposed to have. That is illegal. But yet Donald Trump is the only one that gets charged for it. Number 2, obstructing justice, which is another thing that they're charging Donald Trump with. Well, if Joe Biden and his team and his lawyers and his staffers, if the House Oversight Committee is now starting to learn that all these people lied to investigators about the timeline, about when they found these documents and when they were searching for them and when they were dividing them up and so on and so forth, then that is called obstructing justice. Number 3, making false statements. So by the mere fact that Joe Biden came out, his staffers came out, the fact that these people lied and made false statements to the investigators, that is another charge that they are only charging Donald Trump with that Joe Biden allegedly did. So Biden insisted that he was entirely surprised by the discovery of the documents in November 2022. Remember these dates, because this is where it's so important, is the dates, folks. So in November 2022, he echoed the narrative of both his lawyers and the media at large, saying, quote, "And they did what they should have done," he said. "They immediately called the archives, turned them over to the archives, and I was briefed about the discovery." In reality, Biden's counsel and associates conducted repeated searches and declared repeatedly that no further classified documents were found. That was repeatedly found to be untrue. Right? False statements. That's what they're charging Donald Trump with, right? Making false statements? Moreover, the concern is that Biden's lawyers, in the course of these private searches, may have consolidated material and contaminated the scene by the time the FBI agents conducted their searches. This includes changing how documents were originally stored and whether classified markings were visible to anyone working around the Biden home or garage. And so essentially what they're saying is that, yeah, they may have called the authorities immediately, is what they're saying. But that still doesn't hide the fact that these people were consolidating material and contaminating the scene before the FBI even got there to conduct their searches. Now, I don't know about you, but was Donald Trump given a warning before the FBI kicked down his door and raided Mar-a-Lago? I don't think so. So why does Joe Biden get this? He gets all types of attorneys over there. He gets and all the staffers, attorneys, lawyers, associates over there before the FBI even gets there? So these people were, frantically going through classified documents? What did they do with the documents before the FBI got there? It doesn't make sense, folks. None of this stuff makes sense. This is what you call a two-tier justice system. This is what you call double standards. So everything that they are accusing Donald Trump of doing, and not just accusing him, charging him with after indicting him, Joe Biden allegedly has done. Right? So back to the Hill here. Now it appears that the discovery had actually been made months earlier. The timeline would now more closely mirror Trump's timeline in the knowing retention of classified material. The failure to turn over all of the classified material despite assurances from counsel and alleged false accounts about the document's discovery. It is not clear what Hur can do if he finds either from witnesses or forensic testing, including perhaps fingerprints on the documents, that President Biden lied. What can you do? You can't indict a sitting president. So even if Bill Hur, the special counsel, finds out that Joe Biden lied, what can they do? I don't know. But I guarantee you the House Oversight Committee is going to release this during their impeachment inquiry. They have to, because the American people are owed the truth. The American people deserve the truth. And this classified document stuff is a pretty freaking big deal, man. You can't just have classified documents spread out all throughout Delaware, in your home, at your garage, in your library, at your office, at Penn Biden Center. Where else were these documents? Who had contact with these documents? Did anybody go into Joe Biden's garage to look at these documents? You know, Hunter Biden was living there at the time. Did he sell any of these documents? Did he take pictures of them and email them? We're starting to learn that there were classified documents and emails. This is what I'm talking about, folks. It is clear and obvious that the Biden family, Joe Biden, is a very, very corrupt family, and Joe Biden's a very, very corrupt politician. However, we have government institutions and the system, the Washington swamp, willing to cover up for Biden and all their little club members in order to prevent Donald Trump from becoming president. And so they will lie, they will cheat, they will steal, they will do whatever they have to do to make sure Biden is protected and that Donald Trump gets railroaded with frivolous lawsuits and indictments. This is what you call republic-ending tactics, lawfare, persecutions, all being done by Donald Trump's main chief political rival. Banana Republic stuff, folks. Third world Banana Republic tactics. So back to the article, I have long disagreed with the policy that the Justice Department has long held, that prosecutors should not indict a sitting president. Were he to seek an indictment, Hur would have to ask for reconsideration of the policy based on a decades-old memo issued by the Office of Legal Counsel under President Bill Clinton, who at the time faced calls for an indictment for perjury. Yeah, so again, Bill Clinton, another Democrat president, lied under oath and no indictment. See, these people, it's all the same club, folks. It's all the same system. It's one gigantic corrupt club that we're not invited to. That's what this is. So if you're someone like Bill Clinton or Joe Biden, you're allowed to have classified documents. In Bill Clinton's case, you're allowed to perjure yourself under oath, and nothing's going to happen to you. But I think it's time for that to change. So if this new timeline is accurate, the question is whether Biden knew that the account being put forward by his staff and counsel was false. It also raises the question of whether the president knowingly possessed classified documents and lied about their removal, use, and discovery. Finally, if Biden repeated his public denials to Hur, there could be added allegations of false statements to federal investigators, another commonly charged federal crime. And I will add another charge that they're charging Donald Trump with, lying to federal investigators. We still have to see if there is evidence to support such crimes, but what is clear is that the past narrative may no longer suffice. In his press conference announcing the criminal charges against Trump, Smith declared, quote, "We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Nothing more, nothing less." And when I hear these people say this stuff, it drives me nuts. The biggest example of this being a complete and utter lie by Jack Smith is Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden has ignored a congressional subpoena, and this guy had the balls to go into Congress, just showed up out of nowhere, right? Showed up out of nowhere and is like, okay, I'm ready. I'm here to do my deposition. Just ignored a congressional subpoena and shows up on the Hill whenever he wants. Tell me this does not look like a spoiled, rotten politician's little kid. That is exactly what Hunter Biden is. It is clear and obvious that there is two sets of laws and that there is people that are above the law. And those people are Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. It is right in your face. Hunter Biden ignored a congressional subpoena. Steve Bannon ignored a congressional subpoena, and guess what? He got charged and indicted and is facing prison. Only people surrounding Donald Trump actually get charged and indicted and sentenced for ignoring congressional subpoenas, not Hunter Biden. He ignores congressional subpoenas right in front of your face and then walks into the Capitol as if he owns the place, knowing that nothing's going to happen to him because he knows that there's two sets of laws and that if anything happens to him, his daddy's going to get him out of trouble. So the question for her is whether they can also apply to a sitting president. Likewise, if these allegations are true and Biden knowingly committed these crimes, the question could be whether he should remain as president. So in other words, impeaching Joe Biden. Why? For keeping and retaining classified documents, for allegedly lying to investigators about what he knew about the documents and the timeline of the discovery of the documents, and obstructing justice. Because if you lie to investigators, you are obstructing justice. So essentially, everything that they're charging Donald Trump with, Joe Biden is actually doing. Which, listen, that is a common theme on this show. Literally, everything that they accuse their opponents of doing, they have either done, are currently doing, or plan on doing in the future. This is the type of stuff that happens in third world countries. There's no other way around it. Joe Biden, and everybody knows this, Joe Biden and the Biden family are probably one of the most corrupt families in the United States. Think of how many politicians are out there that didn't have an idiot kid leaving a laptop in a computer repair store. There is so much corruption running rampant through our government. And it is like the government institutions exist only as like personal bodyguards for the corrupt politicians in Washington, D.C. That is it. Because we certainly don't see them, protecting our southern border. We certainly don't see them preventing the savage, barbaric attacks on Israel. What we're watching right now is a government that is too big, bloated, wasteful, ineffective, and now has been weaponized against the American people. All in the name of stopping Donald Trump. One man. I don't know about you, but the more they come after Donald Trump, the more I want to vote for him. And this is why Donald Trump's poll numbers can continuously go up and up and up. And the more the poll numbers go up, the more desperate these people are going to get. And listen, this story came out on October 14th. I have a feeling that the House Oversight Committee, this is going to be a big deal during that investigation. First of all, we haven't heard anything about it. And if it was, something that vindicated Joe Biden, well, of course it would be all over the media. Why? Because when you type in Joe Biden and classified documents in your search engine, you will get about 50 pages of left-wing Pravda media outlets saying nothing but Joe Biden was allowed to do this, Donald Trump was not. Joe Biden is allowed to have documents, Donald Trump was. It's nothing but a giant cover-up operation by the leftist media, because the leftist Democrat media is now an arm of the administrative state. They are one in the same entity. So you have a corrupt government, you have a bloated, weaponized government that now has the press that constantly defends it. And it's a revolving door. You have people that leave government, go into the media. You have people from the media informing the government. It's insane. And one of the biggest revelations of this was the Twitter files. Thank God for Elon Musk. The Twitter files was so damaging. It was so historical. It was such a historical moment in this country because for the first time, you had undeniable proof on I don't know how many different occasions that the federal government was violating people's First Amendment rights by colluding and coordinating with social media platforms to stymie and stifle people's speech, to delete accounts, to shadow ban people, to violate people's First Amendment rights to free speech. We've never, ever in this country's history had an example bigger than the Twitter files of that happening. And so now another excuse, and I want to get into this real quick before we head out here. So one of the major things that the left will recite as a reason why Joe Biden why Joe Biden didn't do anything wrong in the classified document scandal is they will cite the executive order signed by Barack Obama, which is Executive Order 13526, the Classified National Security Information. All right? So I got an article here from CNN Politics, And this article is actually from November 16th, right? 2023. So this is fairly new. It says special counsel investigating Joe Biden's handling of classified material is not expected to bring charges. I wonder why. Maybe because he knows that you can't indict a sitting president. But I guarantee you the House Oversight Committee is going to reveal the truth to everyone. Hur and his team are compiling a detailed report on their year-long probe that is expected to be critical of Biden and his staff for the way they handled sensitive materials. And so it's essentially going to be a slap on a wrist. Not very surprising to any of us out here that actually see the double standards in our justice system. So the report is expected to go into significant detail about what the special counsel's office found in its investigation. Investigators on Hur's team have told other Justice Department officials that they hope to have the report completed by the end of the year, but that timeline could slide. Ian Sams, a spokesperson for the White House counsel office, declined to comment. Of course, because he knows that he was part of that group that lied to the American people about the timeline of the events. That was my own added language. Surely CNN did not say that. Hur was appointed in January to investigate after classified documents from Biden's time as vice president were found in his former office at the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C., and at his Wilmington, Delaware home, but they leave out it was in his garage. You have to add the garage detail because it's so bad. Like when you see a picture with classified documents just chilling in Joe Biden's garage as he's pulling out his Corvette, like that looks awful. And they're not going to say that on CNN, so they just say at his home. A spokesperson for Hur declined to comment. Now, one difference I will tell you about Joe Biden and Donald Trump is Donald Trump actually had a SCIF developed inside Mar-a-Lago. So Donald Trump was allowed to have classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. How do we know this? We know this because there was constant communications between the National Archives and Donald Trump and his staff about where the documents were stored. They said, hey, we want you to put a lock on this and everything should be fine. And then later down the road, he gets raided. So Donald Trump actually is allowed to have classified documents because he is protected by the Presidential Records Act. I don't see a Vice Presidential Records Act. I don't see a Senator Records Act. Just a Presidential Records Act. So the Wall Street Journal first reported Hur isn't likely to bring criminal case. CNN previously reported charges appeared unlikely, according to sources familiar with the investigators' line of questioning, and that there has been no discernible grand jury activity. Well, what are they going to do? Indict a sitting president? No. We already know why they're not going to do that. Why? Because there is no precedent for it. And so why this guy is essentially a lame duck. He is investigating really for us, to just get details and get the truth out there, knowing that there's not going to be any repercussions from it. So a decision not to pursue charges is likely drawing criticism from Donald Trump and his allies. Yes, they're right here. They have long drawn parallels between Hur's investigation with that of special counsel Jack Smith, who earlier this year brought charges against the former president related to his own handling of classified documents after he left the White House. But the key differences between the two probes abound, include the fact that the National Archives repeatedly tried and failed to get back documents in Trump's possession. Well, there is a process for that, and that is called a lawsuit. You file a civil lawsuit to get the documents you want. You do not start out with a FBI raid. So you don't go from, hey, we want the documents, you're not responding, so let's just send in the FBI and kick down your door. No, there's a process. There's always been a process for this, and you fight it out in court. Is Donald Trump allowed to have the documents, or does the National Archives have right to the documents? That's what you fight out in court. You don't just get a Stasi police state to go kick down the door and grab all the documents and go through your wife's underwear drawer and closets and take your passports. Like, that's not what we do here in this country. This is not freaking Cuba, man. We're not in the Soviet Union. But this is what the Democrats did. This is why Democrats are descending this country into a third world shit show. So at one point, the FBI secured a search warrant to search his Florida estate. Yeah, that's what they call it, search. They don't want to call it a raid. They want to call it a search. Biden's attorneys, on the other hand, quickly notified the National Archives of the materials found in his possession, which, listen, folks, this article came out after the Hill article I just read you. So the media, once again, had to countermeasure the Hill article where Jonathan Turley was telling people that the timeline's not adding up and that Joe Biden could have possibly knowingly lied about the events and the discovery of the documents for many, many months before. And so they had to do another cover-up operation. Once again, the media acts like an appendage of the administrative state and the Biden administration. So in this article, it doesn't actually say it because this isn't the right article, but they refer to the executive order signed by Barack Obama, 13526. And there's a key point that they actually leave out in that article. Here is USA Today. It says, fact check, Biden did have the authority to declassify documents as vice president. So that is the reason they're going with. When you ask the question, well, why did Joe Biden have classified freaking documents anyways? He doesn't even have authority to declassify them. So there should be no reason for him to have them, right? That is probably the common assumption from regular, sane, rational people saying, hey, why does Joe Biden have classified documents if he doesn't have the authority to declassify them? And so what they point to is this executive order signed by Barack Obama. And it says the claim, Biden did not have the authority to declassify documents as vice president. A January 12th Instagram reel shows a clip of President Joe Biden answering a question from Fox News about a batch of classified documents that were found at Biden's home. Quote, Biden did not have the authority to declassify documents that were classified in his possession of vice president during the Obama administration. Only the president can declassify classified documents, not the vice president. So why were these documents in his possession? And then USA Today does a fact check, and their rating says false. But it's why it's false is what's going to bake your noodle. Legal experts told USA Today that Biden had the authority to declassify documents as vice president as the result of a 2009 executive order signed by President Barack Obama. The claim that Biden did not have the authority to declassify documents as vice president is complete nonsense. Kel McClanahan, executive director of National Security Counselors, a public interest law firm, told USA Today in an email, so essentially part of the D.C. swamp. McClanahan, who also teaches at George Washington University Law School, said that under a 2009 executive order signed by Obama, the vice president is included in a list of, quote, original classification authorities, meaning Biden had the power to declassify anything he classified. Boom. You see, this is how they do it. This is how they get the narrative out there. Now, how many people do you know that are going to read that far into the article to find out how the media misrepresents and misleads the public? It says the original classification authorities, meaning Biden had the power to declassify anything he classified. Not what Barack Obama classified, not what George W. Bush classified. He can only declassify what he originally classified. The Washington Post also reported vice presidents have the authority to declassify anything they classified, right? The New York Times reported that the vice president has the power to declassify while noting the scope of the authority has never been definitively tested. And so they don't know. They don't know. But as of right now, what we know so far, what there is precedent for, what is in the law, is that Joe Biden can only declassify what he himself classified originally. That is it. So in other words, unless Joe Biden had these documents that he actually classified himself and that he miraculously declassified, which I don't know how you could declassify something you didn't even know you had, because that is the claim that Joe Biden is making. So I think this is why the investigation is taking so long, because this guy, Robert Hur, is coming up to stop block after stop block after stop block by the Biden administration, by our own government institutions, trying to essentially obstruct justice by not giving the truth. But what we know so far is that the House Oversight Committee is starting to find out that the timeline is not adding up, and that Joe Biden's staff and his attorneys were looking for these documents and consolidating them and dividing them up well before they contacted the authorities, even though the media and the Biden administration told the American people and allegedly told investigators that as soon as they discovered the documents, they immediately called the authorities. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not adding up, folks. It's not. And so what the House Oversight Committee needs to do needs to subpoena all of the Biden staffers, all of the people close to Joe Biden, and this particular woman, what's her name? Annie Tomasini. You know, the one that's like super close with Hunter Biden, saying, I love you and all that good stuff. The nepotism makes me sick in our government's politics. Everybody knows one another. You get your kids a job, you get your cousins a job, your nieces and nephews, they're all working in politics. It's like one gigantic corrupt political orgy going on in our nation's capital. And it's like Donald Trump was the one guy that wasn't invited to the club. He is like crashing their party, and they got to get rid of him immediately. Why? Because they can't buy him off. That is really the reason why. They know Donald Trump cannot be swayed with money. They cannot be swayed with power because he already has these things. And when you have somebody that you can't sway and you can't corrupt, then you're in deep shit when this guy is sitting there telling you and threatening to go in there and dismantle their whole damn corrupt temple and bring it down on their heads. These people are pissing their pants. And the problem is, in my opinion, there's not going to be enough time for Donald Trump to go in there, dismantle all this stuff, and get it back on track. But I do think he can change the course of the country. And that's exactly why I signed up to help with Project 2025, is because I know that Donald Trump's one term alone is not going to be enough. However, he can make a significant impact in the 4 years that he's there. And what I personally think is that Joe Biden, amongst losing the election, is he's going to pardon himself, and he's going to sign a pardon for him, his son, and his entire family, essentially giving them a get-out-of-jail-free card from now on until forever, until the day they die. You know who didn't do that? Donald Trump. Very weird, huh? Now, why wouldn't Donald Trump give himself a pardon when he absolutely had the power to? Probably because he knew he didn't do anything corrupt and he didn't break any laws. It's surely not something a guilty man would do upon leaving the White House. If a guilty man had an opportunity to give himself a get-out-of-jail-free card no matter what, you would probably expect that guilty person to give himself a pardon. Donald Trump didn't. Wonder why. I don't know. I think we all probably know the answer to that. So that's all for today's episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you have any questions, I'm going to post all these articles and all my research onto my onto the podcast description so you guys can go look this stuff up yourself. I essentially read both of the articles, so you pretty much got it all here. That's why we have a hour-long episode, which is not something I intended to do, but pay attention to this, because I think this is going to be a big deal in the House Oversight Committee in the impeachment inquiries coming up. You have Mayorkas that is now going to be impeached, or there's at least an inquiry going into impeaching Mayorkas for high crimes and misdemeanors. And I would probably say the very next person that needs to be impeached is Merrick Garland. We've never had an attorney general as politicized and partisan as Attorney General Merrick Garland. And to think that all these things that they accused Donald Trump of doing, they themselves are actually doing. You guys remember they accused Donald Trump he was going to create chaos, death, destruction, war, famine, debt. He was going to crash the stock market. It was going to be hell on earth. When actually it's Joe Biden and the Biden administration and Democrats as a whole that's doing all of it. They are the threats to our democracy by trying to remove Joe Biden's chief political rival off the ballot. They are the ones weaponizing the justice system and using lawfare against Joe Biden's chief political rival to get him across the finish line. They are the ones that have created chaos amongst this country. They are the ones that have created debt in this country. We were never at war during the entire Trump administration, and now we find ourselves in all types of global conflicts and entanglements. And so here it is, the Democrats and the Biden administration are everything that they told you Donald Trump would be. I don't know about you, but I just find that to be poetic justice, man. Poetic justice. That's all I can say. So we'll see. As I always say on the show, the truth will prevail. It always does, folks. Liberty and freedom will prevail in the end. Let's just hope the Trump administration, Donald Trump himself, can do some serious damage control for the 4 years that he's in there and can pass the gauntlet off to another staunch conservative and somebody dedicated to giving this country back to the American people and just squash this progressive movement that's infected our country like a cancer, and the American people can actually unite around prosperity. And because I am a true believer that it's actually prosperity that unites people, not disparity. So we'll see. We got about 10 months. There's a lot more stuff I want to get into, so make sure you tune into the next segment. If you want to get a hold of me, Steven Tauriello Show at gmail.com. I should be doing, I do it completely backwards. I should be doing all my show promotion in the beginning of the show, but I don't. It's just one of those things. I want to get right into the content and start filling you guys in with what's going on. I actually forget what I should be doing as a podcast host. So I don't do it. We do it ass backwards here. That's fine. Anyways, if you want to get a hold of me, Steven Tauriello Show at gmail.com. I'd really appreciate it if you guys followed the show on whatever podcast platform you're listening to the show on, which if you want to find the show or you want to find my content, all you have to do is just go into your search engine and just type in the Steven Tauriello Show, and you will find all the content. You will find all the platforms the show's on. You will find the YouTube channels, the Rumble channels. And if you could, I really, really appreciate it. And I would prefer you to follow the show on Rumble other than YouTube, because we got to try and make that transfer. We got to make that leap, folks. We got to make sure we hold up Rumble, because they are the basis of free speech. They are giving us a pathway to real free speech and a real free speech platform. So I'd appreciate it. Follow the show on Rumble, and make sure you guys tune into the next segment, which I'm going to be doing here in just a little bit. I want you guys to have a good day. Have a great weekend. God bless you, and God bless America. You guys have a good day. Bye-bye.